Hi everyone, a very good afternoon and a very warm welcome. Thank you for joining us in this webinar this afternoon on a Sunday. आपका बहुत ही precious time निकालने के लिए, especially Sunday afternoon के लिए आपके लिए बहुत बड़ा thank you. Let me start अपने introduction के साथ. My name is Sonali Shivlani, and I'm a pregnancy and post-delivery consultant. I'm based in Mumbai, and I have been doing this work for almost 17 years now. But I'm going to be speaking a little later. We do have a very special guest with us, Dr. Madhvi from Shreyas Multi-Specialty Hospital, and she is going to be talking to us today about COVID-19 and pregnancy. This webinar has been facilitated for us by CordLife, which is one of India's leading stem cell banks. So thank you very much, CordLife, for creating this platform that is pandemic में भी हम सबसे बातें कर सकते हैं. We can connect, we can share information. And जो थोड़ी बहुत pregnancy में fears होते हैं, concerns होते हैं, doubts आते हैं, जो अभी हम clinic में जाके नहीं पूछ सकते, that is getting covered through these platforms. A couple of things just to make you understand about how this webinar will work. All of you are kept on mute. मतलब आपके microphones mute पे रखे गए हैं. इसका मतलब आप बोल नहीं सकते. इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि आप questions नहीं पूछ सकते. So आपके panel में you will be able to see a questions box. तो आपके जितने सवाल हैं, please put it in the questions. Dr. Madhvi and myself, we will answer it once the webinar is coming to a close. So please put all your questions, clear all your doubts so that you go back today feeling happy and relaxed, and that's the most important thing during pregnancy, right? This webinar is going to be recorded. So after a couple of days, maybe 48 to 72 hours, CordLife team will get in touch with you and will share the recording link. So you don't have to worry about anything. Right now, just use the washroom, get a bottle of water. I hope you've eaten your lunch. Take lots of pillows, make yourself comfortable, and enjoy the session. Right? So I'm going to hand over to Dr. Madhvi. Thank you so much, ma'am, for giving us this Sunday afternoon. It's family time, it's precious time. But we're really privileged to have you join us and share all the knowledge. And I'm also very eagerly wanting to learn more about how COVID-19 and pregnancy can be taken care of. Over to you, Dr. Madhvi.
Yeah, thank you, Sonali. Very good afternoon, all of you. How are you all doing this afternoon? So I'll be dealing briefly about COVID-19 in relation to pregnancy. So as you all must be aware by now that it is caused by a virus called coronavirus, and it's a relatively new disease which has started about a year ago. It spreads from person to person through close contact or from droplets that are scattered when a person with a virus sneezes or coughs. Although it's much less common, there's a possibility that someone who is infected with the coronavirus can transmit the virus even if they're not showing symptoms. It's also possible that the virus can be transmitted via touching surfaces which are contaminated and then touching your mouth and nose. However, this isn't the main way the novel coronavirus spreads. This virus hasn't been extensively studied, so no one can say for sure whether the pregnant women are more susceptible to the virus or not. But in general, pregnant women are more susceptible to most of the respiratory infections, such as flu, because pregnancy changes your immune system and partly because of the way pregnancy impacts your lungs and heart. But the good news is pregnant women do not appear to be more likely to contract COVID-19 infection than the general population. Now, coming to the symptoms, about 80% of the patients who contract the disease are asymptomatic and they don't need any monitoring. But some of the patients may have certain symptoms like cold or flu. Most of the pregnant women may present with fever or cough, but about 10% of the women may have symptoms like shortness of breath, body pains, loss of sense of smell or taste, and diarrhea, etc. In general, when compared to non-pregnant women, pregnant women are less likely to suffer from a fever or body pains. The symptoms of COVID-19 can be like those of other viruses like cold or flu. So the chances are, unless you get tested, you will not know if you have COVID-19. So you should be aware of certain symptoms which are related to COVID-19, like cough, fever, trouble in breathing, then sore throat, running nose, muscle pains, chills, headache, loss of taste or smell, nausea, vomitings, diarrhea, or tiredness, so that you can reach your doctor at the earliest. About 80% of the people recover from symptoms of COVID-19 without needing any special medical treatment. But some of the patients may become seriously ill after contracting COVID-19. So who are these patients? Like old adults or people with compromised immune system or at highest risk of developing serious illness. Now, in relation to pregnancy, the risk factors which predispose a woman to serious COVID-19 infection are like if the pregnant woman is obese, or if the pregnant woman has other comorbidities like hypertension, diabetes, or if the woman's age is more than 35, or if she's living in congested areas, or in addition, certain individuals like who are constantly exposed to the infection like healthcare workers are also at higher risk. Now, coming to the complications in pregnancy, based on what we know at this time, pregnant women are at increased risk of severe illness from COVID-19 when compared to general population. And additionally, pregnant women with COVID-19 might be at increased risk for other adverse outcomes like preterm deliveries. Maternal COVID-19 is associated with approximately 3 times greater risk of preterm deliveries, and most of these are because of maternal or fetal compromise. Now, coming to the all-important question of whether the virus passes from an infected mother to the baby in her womb. Judging from the women who have given birth while infected with this virus, the answer probably is that it's unlikely, or more accurately, that there's no definite evidence that it does. COVID-19 is a disease that mainly passed from person to person through droplets, and your baby can only be exposed to such infection through droplets after birth. Now, with regard to vertical transmission, which means the transmission from the mother to the baby in her womb or during delivery, evidence suggests that if vertical transmission does occur, it is uncommon. And if it does, it appears to not be affected by the mode of birth, the method of feeding, or whether the woman and the baby stay together. So based on these studies, majority of the babies born to COVID-19, COVID-19 mothers, the babies have tested negative for this infection, and very few babies have tested positive. And of these positive babies, most of the babies remain asymptomatic, very few needing admission. So the doctors are, however, not very sure whether these babies contracted the virus in utero or after delivery. It is reassuring that there has not been any significant increase in the incidence of congenital anomalies related to COVID-19 infection during pregnancy, and there's also no increased risk of stillbirth or neonatal deaths if a woman has contracted infection during pregnancy. But there is insufficient data as to comment on the risk of abortions during pregnancy. So in general, the overall outcomes are positive, and about 95% of the newborns reported as being born are in good condition. Now, how can a pregnant woman protect herself from coronavirus? In general, the more people you interact with, the more close you interact with, and the longer the duration of interaction, there is higher risk of you contracting the disease. So always limit interaction with people that have been exposed or infected with coronavirus, including people within your household as much as possible. Avoid activities where taking protective measures may be difficult and where social distancing may not be possible. Now, clean and disinfect things that people touch a lot, like your phones, doorknobs, and counters. When going out or interacting with others outside your household, wear a mask, then avoid others who are not wearing masks or ask others around you to wear a mask. Then stay at least 6 feet away from others outside your household. Now wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. And if soap and water are not available, use a hand sanitizer with at least 60% of alcohol in it. Now, coming to the mode of delivery, COVID-19 infection in pregnancy itself is not an indication to deliver by cesarean section. So we do cesarean section when other indications are there and where the normal delivery is not safe for the mother or the baby. Now, hospital and birth centers are taking every precaution to ensure that moms and babies are safe from germs. Most healthcare facilities keep patients with COVID-19 or those with symptoms away from others and in isolation wards. Hospitals are limiting the number of people allowed in the delivery room. And when your baby is born, visitors may not be allowed into the hospital, or if they are allowed, then they are checked for symptoms of coronavirus. Now, coming to the all-important question of whether the mother can breastfeed her baby. Yes, the presence of COVID infection is not a contraindication to breastfeeding, and it's unlikely to spread, the breast milk is unlikely to spread the infection to the baby. A breast milk provides complete nutrition for the baby and gives protection against many illnesses. And this long-term, well-established benefit of breastfeeding is highly likely to outweigh any potential risk of transmission of the virus through the milk. So you, along with your family and your healthcare provider, should decide whether and how to start or continue breastfeeding. And if you decide to breastfeed the baby, then the precautions which you are supposed to take to prevent the risk of infection to the baby are: wash your hands before touching the baby, breast pump or the bottles. Then avoid coughing or sneezing on the baby while feeding. Wear a mask or fluid resistant face mask while feeding or caring for the baby. The baby should not wear the mask or other face coverings as they are at risk of suffocation. That means you should never cover the baby's face. If the mother is sick and cannot breastfeed the baby, then express breast milk is advisable. And when women are expressing the breast milk in hospital, a dedicated breast pump should be used. The risk of a newborn getting COVID-19 from its mother is less, especially when she uses appropriate precautions before and during care of the newborn, such as wearing a mask and practicing hand hygiene. So having your baby stay with you in the same room has the benefit of facilitating breastfeeding and maternal newborn bonding. So after discussing and making an informed decision of whether the newborn is staying in the same room with you while in the hospital. Excuse me. And if you decide to keep the baby in your room while in the hospital, then the precautions which you need to take to prevent the baby from getting the infection are, again, wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds before handling the baby or caring for the baby. And if soap and water are not there, then use sanitizer with at least 60% alcohol. Then wear a mask when within 6 feet of your baby, and keep your baby more than 6 feet away from you as much as possible. And you can also consider the keeping a physical barrier like an incubator while you're still in the hospital. Now, your newborn's immune system is still developing, and they have a harder time fighting the illnesses. So it's important to stay the baby away from other people when your baby comes home from the hospital. So to protect your baby, keep your baby at home and away from others as much as possible, and don't allow friends and family to meet the baby, and don't take the baby to others' homes. If you have to take the baby out, for instance, to a doctor for visit, then keep yourself and the baby at least 6 feet away from other people, and cover your face, use a face mask, but do not put anything over the baby's face. If someone at your home is sick, take all recommended precautions and keep your baby away from anyone who is sick. At home, all caregivers should wash their hands before and after touching your baby and keep all the surfaces clean. Now, coming to the antenatal checkups in a COVID era. Have your regular antenatal checkups and do not skip any healthcare appointments during and after pregnancy, because we are seeing more complications as the patients are avoiding healthcare checkups. So your doctor or your healthcare provider will decide upon your next appointment based upon your health condition. And some of the appointments can be made on telemedicine, which are appointments over the phone or video. Now, specifically during this COVID era, it is better to get vaccinated against flu or influenza vaccine. Both COVID and flu are respiratory illnesses and they have common symptoms. So it is difficult to differentiate between the two. And second, how these viruses are going to interact in pregnancy is not yet known. And flu vaccine is relatively safe. So after 24 weeks of pregnancy, it is always safe and advisable to take a flu vaccine. Another vaccine which is advisable is whooping cough vaccine. Which is generally taken after 32 weeks of pregnancy, and this will help protect the baby against whooping cough. And whooping cough again has a similar symptom like a COVID-19. Now, several vaccines are being approved world over to prevent or reduce the incidence of coronavirus vaccine in high-risk population. But as of now, pregnant women have been advised not to have the COVID vaccine due to a lack of evidence on the possible harm it may cause to the mother or the baby. So for the time being, it is always better to take all the precautions to prevent COVID-19 and consult your doctor at the earliest once you suspect or have any of the symptoms of COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was really very informative. I'm sure all the mothers are going to benefit with all the, special advantages and information that you have shared with them. So I'm going to now move ahead to kind of, move to our next segment for today, where we are going to talk to you about pregnancy and postpartum exercises. So let's move ahead and get into the next segment of what we have for you as far as today's session is concerned. So as I've already shared my very quick introduction earlier on, my name is Sonali Shivlani, and I'm a pregnancy and postnatal consultant based out of Mumbai, currently based online, and I'm doing everything online at the moment because of the social distancing. We don't want to put our mamas at risk. Another little shared fact about myself is I'm a mother as well. I have 2 kids. I call them kids, I call them children, but they are much, much older. So my son is going to celebrate his 20th birthday this year in December, and my daughter's already turned 18. So it's been a wonderful journey being a mom, and that makes me a very big storyteller. When CODLIFE asked me and Dr. Madhvi asked me to do this session on exercise for a healthy pregnancy and postpartum, I was very excited because exercise is one of my most favorite topics. I love the concept of exercise because it has so many benefits. So without chitter-chattering more, without talking more, I'm going to move ahead and I'm going to talk about exercises for pregnancy and even in the postpartum period. And just as a reminder, the recording of the session will be shared with you. So you can just watch and understand everything right now. And you will be getting the links so that you can kind of, follow the procedure, the process or the steps at home as well. Also, something really exciting. There is a little gift for everybody at the end of the session. So make sure that you don't leave before the session gets over, right? So pregnancy is divided into 4 stages. The first trimester, which is 0 to 12 weeks. The second trimester, which is 13 to 27 weeks. The third trimester, which is 28 to 40 weeks. And the fourth trimester is what we call the postpartum period, which is the immediate post-delivery, which is for the first, 3 months post-delivery. The most important thing that you must remember is that before you begin any exercise program, कोई भी exercise program शुरू करने से पहले, always consult your doctor. I'm sure all pregnancies are going to be healthy and etc. But sometimes we do have certain conditions which may make exercise contraindicated. In the sense कि आपको exercise मना किया जाएगा. अब ये conditions आप और मैं नहीं समझ पाएंगे, ये आपके डॉक्टर्स समझ पाते हैं. Based on your ultrasound reports, based on your tests, वो आपको चेक करके बता सकेंगे कि आप एक्सरसाइज शुरू कर सकते हैं या नहीं, या आपको एक्सरसाइज कब शुरू करनी चाहिए. कई बार ऐसा होता है कि ड्यूरिंग द अर्ली प्रेगनेंसी एक्सरसाइज मना की जाती है. You are asked to not exercise, but once you reach your 3rd trimester, the exercise program is allowed. So it all depends on individual pregnancy conditions, and you should in spite of the fact that I'm going to explain so much about exercise today, doctor's permission is very, very essential. Here are a few things that you should keep in mind. There's no hurry. We have enough time. So start slow. कई बार ऐसा होता है that during your normal situation you have not been exercising. So if you start something, you should always start slowly and gently. Many times, first 3 months, you don't do any exercise because even in your family, you are told don't exercise. It's not a good idea. You should relax. You should take care. It's kache din. The first 3 months, the baby is still forming and all of that is happening. So it is a good idea because you've got a 3 months gap. You should start slow. Your body is kind of, in a lethargic state. Anything new, if you have not done before, please don't start unsupervised because if you're doing something wrong, you won't come to know. I know there are lots and lots of YouTube videos and etc. which are available, but a little bit of supervision is always helpful. There are many online options available where the trainers are teaching you the exercises in a live method. So that might be something that you can consider. It is always good to do less counts, but always keep your posture in mind. So with every exercise, I'm also going to be talking to you about the posture. If you have an incorrect posture, chances of injury are much more. So benefit is not there, injury happens, and that's not something that we want for you. If you feel any kind of discomfort, please stop, right? I understand that, sometimes exercise can cause certain aches and pains, but you should, if you're feeling uncomfortable, if it kind of feels that, oh, there's something not right, you must stop. And if you notice any warning sign, which I'm going to be telling you what are the warning signs, then also you should immediately stop. Do not be a superwoman. This is not the time for you to take any chances and risks. And here are your warning signs. Abdominal cramps. So if you're starting to get period-like cramps, which are rhythmic, which are coming and going, then that's a sign that you may, I'm not trying to scare you, but it is possible that you may be having some early labor contractions. So you should stop. If the contractions are continuing, if the cramps are continuing, then you should visit your doctor. Your baby lives in a bag of waters. So that's called your amniotic fluid. And if this develops a leak, then the infection chances to the baby increase. Plus, we obviously need to ensure that we deliver you ASAP. So if there is any kind of leaking fluid from the vagina, you should get checked. A little amount of milky white vaginal discharge, increase in vaginal discharge during pregnancy is normal. But if it is excessive, if you're kind of feeling damp all the time, constantly aisa lag raha hai ki I need to change my underclothes, then you should also get that checked. Any vaginal bleeding, that should always be reported to the doctor. Sometimes a little bit of brownish discharge may come from placental implantation. It might actually be considered normal, but the doctor should know about it and you should not take it lightly. If there are any other abnormal signs, if you feel maybe blurry vision, excessive headache, some weird kind of a pain anywhere else, anything which feels out of the ordinary, please report it. There are some myths that are surrounding exercise, and I'm sure that, pregnancy fills you up with a lot of myths, and there are so many pregnancy myths. I'm not going to go there today. Today, I'm only going to talk about exercise-related myths. So the first is exercise will cause a miscarriage. Don't exercise. That's not true. If it's a healthy pregnancy, exercise does not increase your chances of early labor. Exercise does not cause a miscarriage. Exercise also does not make the baby grow less, because many times, older people will tell you, oh my God, you're doing so much activity. Where will the baby get the energy to grow from? That is not true. The baby is going to grow well, so you do not need to worry. Exercise is going to make you feel tired and exhausted. Yes, in the beginning when you start, exercise can make you feel tired. But after a few days, once you've been doing it regularly, you'll actually feel very energized. So exercise can be a good energy booster also. Exercise is not going to overheat and dehydrate you as long as you wear the right clothing and drink plenty of water before, during, and after your workout. Weightlifting exercises for the upper body, light weights, 2 or 3 kilo weights, can easily be used during pregnancy. Of course, you should not become a bodybuilder. That's not the idea. But light weights are allowed, especially for the upper body. If you are on bed rest, it actually depends on the type of bed rest you are on. You know, some women are told to absolutely not move. They're not even allowed to go to the bathroom. For those women, the only things that you can do is maybe some neck rotations, maybe, you know, some wrist and hand movements, maybe some pointing and flexing of your feet. But still, that little bit of movement is very important because it will ensure that your muscles don't start wasting, right? Warm up and cool down are your best friends because your body is in a pregnant state. Your hormones have made your muscles and ligaments a little loose and a little lax, and this is going to cause injuries if you do not warm up or cool down. So make sure that you include a few minutes of warm up and a few minutes of cool down with every exercise routine that you do. The next thing I would like to stress upon is your pregnancy posture. Many pregnant mothers will complain about backache, and that's like a common complaint. And they want to know the magic mantra to solve their back pain problems. Now, let's understand why back pain happens, right? So, during pregnancy, actually non-pregnant also, for a non-pregnant person also, there is a little curvature which is there in the lower part of your back. Right above your buttocks, there is a small curve in your back. Now, during pregnancy, what happens? The stomach starts growing, the uterus starts growing. There is a lot of weight being created in the front of the abdomen, because of which the spine starts curving just a little more. So there is a deeper curve now. And this is the first cause why back pain happens during pregnancy. There is one more. During pregnancy, if you've realized, your breast sizes have also changed. So what is happening? You're getting a nice little curve here because the breasts have become so heavy. So you have a curve here and you have this stooping shoulders over here, drooping shoulders, and this is your major cause of back pain. Now, 80% of back pain problems, and I'm really serious, 80% of back pain problems can be corrected by your sitting and standing postures. So we'll start with the sitting posture. If you see the woman on the left, she is not taking any back support, she's slouching. But you see the woman on the right, the back is absolutely nice and straight and it's completely supported. And also the feet should be resting on the floor. Especially if you're an office person and you need to sit in a chair for long hours, don't leave your legs dangling. You know, always support your feet. You know, the concept of having a chota sa stool apne desk ke niche is a very important aspect and you should keep that in mind. For correcting your back posture, you know those choto pillows that you get, the small pillows which we keep in the car, you can keep that behind your back as that will help to support your back really well. Now comes the same issue as far as standing, right? When we walk, we kind of, because the belly is protruding out, the shoulders are hunched, we start getting back pain. So consciously, make sure that you're tall and erect, and you should push your shoulders behind, and you can stick your chest out a little bit. So when you do that, you automatically correct your spine angles, and that is going to result in less back pain problem for you, 80% less back pain issues. For the balance 20%, I'm going to teach you some exercises, and I will also encourage you to get a good gentle massage from your husband. Now let's start talking about prenatal exercise. That's the main topic that I have to discuss today. There are lots of benefits to exercise. I think by now all of you have understood that this girl is going to talk very highly about exercise because I really believe that exercise can solve most of our health problems. So it will help to prevent discomforts like back pain, cramps in the legs, acidity, swelling. A lot of times it will help to ease that. It boosts your energy and it also boosts your mood. I'm sure you've heard about pregnancy moods, and if there are any husbands today who have joined us, they will probably say that, oh my God, my wife has become so cranky and irritable and, she reacts like anything. Exercise can help to control those hormones and therefore make your moods really positive. It'll help you sleep better. I run a prenatal exercise class, and a lot of times mothers actually tell me this, that Sonali, why can't we have a class every day? And I'm like, no, I love you, but I don't want to kind of, do class every day. So I do a class 2 or 3 times a week, and that's the day they feel that they sleep much better. It will help to prevent excessive weight gain. So some amount of weight gain is normal during pregnancy, but we don't want you to gain excessive weight. It will increase your stamina, which means you'll feel less lethargic. You'll be able to get through your day easily. It'll improve your muscle strength, which in turn will help to support your abdomen, the growing baby, and etc. Incidence of pregnancy complications, hypertension, gestational diabetes, thyroid issues, all of that also gets greatly reduced. Of course, it will help in your labor and birth because it helps to strengthen your muscles. It helps to make your pelvis more flexible, and therefore the delivery becomes a lot more easier. And let's not forget the post-delivery. We need to get absolutely back on our feet ASAP because we have to take care of the baby. So a faster postpartum recovery for a healthy pregnancy is definitely a positive thing. Now, I know I asked you to do something supervised, which is understandable. So if you can't find a supervised class, if you can't kind of, come up with a program where there is good supervision, let's start with a walking program. Let's make life really simple. It is safe, it is convenient, it can be done anywhere, and there's no supervision needed. But there are some things that you should keep in mind. Make sure that you wear comfortable walking shoes, right? It's very important that you wear comfortable walking shoes. I have seen a lot of times mothers will wear their home slippers and they will go for a walk. That's not a good idea. Those flip-flops do not support your feet. You will get knee pain, ankle pain, foot pain, and then you might slip. You might get hurt with some stones and pebbles. That's not a good idea. Wear cotton exercise clothes so that your body can breathe and you don't get dehydrated or get overheated. Don't go on an empty stomach. I mean, if you're not pregnant, okay, that's your prerogative. But if you're pregnant, you should not be hungry. So eat a small snack, but don't eat a full meal. Many times I've seen mothers will have dinner and then that's their walk after dinner. Because you've eaten a full meal, so only a leisurely stroll is possible after dinner. A brisk walk is not possible. Always carry a bottle of water so that you can hydrate yourself. Walk at a pace which is comfortable, does not make you breathless, but it is still brisk. You should be able to talk, but you should not want to talk. You know that if your friend calls to gossip on the phone, then it is something that you would want to avoid. Listen to your body. That's very important. The aim is about 30 to 45 minutes every day, but if on a particular day you're tired, you want to do only 15 minutes, 20 minutes, that's okay. You don't want to go once in a while, that's okay. Maybe what you can do is you can do a 15-minute walk, you can just rest for a little while, enjoy some fresh air, and then continue your walk also. So that also is an option and an alternative. Now let's do some simple exercises. These can also be used as a warm-up. You can try them while you're sitting on the couch or the bed where you're watching this session. So we will start with some neck rotations. Neck rotations are very helpful because they help to improve the circulation to your brain. So chances of headaches, that dizzy feeling, all that definitely reduces. Neck rotations will also help with your thyroid function. So that's something which is very, very important and essential. Okay. So do it with me really, really slowly. If any of you has vertigo issues, then you should avoid doing a complete rotation. But otherwise, everybody else can do it together. So we'll try 1 or 2 counts of the exercise together. Slowly drop your chin to your chest. Drop your head back. All right, now let's do a full rotation. Drop your chin to your chest. Left ear to left shoulder. Back of the head to the back. Right ear to right shoulder. Chin to chest. And we're going to reverse this. Right ear to right shoulder. Back of the head to the back. Left ear to left shoulder. And chin to chest. And you come back to starting position. Okay? So how many counts of each of these exercises that I'm going to show? It really depends on you. So it's not necessary that you have to do a zillion counts, but sometimes with these warm-up exercises, You can just do 4 or 5 counts also, and that's good enough. Another thing that you can do is wrist rotations. So nicely, gently try it out, especially if you have, numbness in your fingers, swelling in your hands, maybe your finger rings don't fit you. So you should definitely try to do this, especially if you're also a working person. You work a lot on the computer. And as you can see, I'm doing this so slowly. There's no rush. There is absolutely no hurry. Okay? The same thing you can do with your feet as well. So you could flex your feet you can point your feet and you can flex. And you can also do nice full rotations with your feet. So try them out. You can do it while you're sitting on the bed. Even if you're sitting on the couch and your feet are down, you can try it out like this as well. If you're driving somewhere, if you're going by car somewhere, you can do this in the car also. So it's not necessary that you have to remove time and do it, especially if you're sitting in one position for a long time. This exercise is highly recommended. This is a butterfly position, very, very helpful for stretching the pelvis. So all you need to do is get your feet together and as close to the pelvis as possible and push your knees as low as possible. Now here you can flap up and down slowly, or you could also go rapidly like a butterfly, right? So rapid flapping of your feet is also something that of your knees is also something that you could try. My personal recommendation for this exercise, sit in this position when you are watching TV, when you are talking on the phone. So इसमें क्या हो जाता है, exercise भी हो जाती है और time pass भी हो जाता है. So you don't have to remove extra time to do it. For back pain, you can try the cat and camel pose. इसमें आपको, it's good to do it on a mat, right? Because on the bed, you might be a little unstable, a little unsteady. So get onto all fours. Your knees are below your hips and your arms are below your shoulders, right? So what you're going to do is first you're going to arch your back, look up at the ceiling. Movement is only in the back. And then slowly you will round your back out like a little camel and you will look down at your navel, right? And you can repeat this a few times. Generally, you can do this exercise after a long day when your back is feeling a little tired. It will help to stretch the back out really well. The pelvic tilt is also very good for lower back pain. It also helps in core strengthening. So it's really simple. Isko bhi aapko mat pe hi karna. You should do this on a mat. Lie down on the floor. Feet are flat on the floor. Knees are pointing to the ceiling. Keep your arms next to your buttocks. And now slowly lift your buttocks up. Hold there for 3 counts. And now slowly come down. Right? Slowly lift your buttocks up. And slowly come down. Right? So you can do this a few times. Very, very good for your lower back and very good for core strengthening. Leg raises also helpful from pelvis stretching, pelvis flexibility. And I'm sure you got it now. It's completely a labor preparation exercise. So it's really simple. Again, I'm mat pe letenge. Let's not do these on the bed. Lie down on the mat on one side first. The second side should not be forgotten. We do it for the left side and then we do it for the right side also. So say we are starting with the left side. Make sure your body is nice and straight. You know, the neck, the spine, the buttocks, they should be all aligned. They should not be up and down, otherwise you will get pain. So make sure your body is in a straight line. I have folded the lower leg because if I keep my lower leg straight, my body will keep wobbling. And again, I will get aches and pains. So I stabilize my body using my hand and using my lower leg. And the upper leg is going to go up to 90 degrees. Very important, 90 degrees. So in the beginning, you may only be able to do 4, 6, 8 counts. But after you start building your energy and your stamina, you will easily be able to do 24 to 32 counts for each leg. And again, please do them really slowly. Famous squats. Everyone asks you to do these, right? But when I'm asking you to do squats, please take some support. because during pregnancy, because of the growing weight in the abdomen, your sense of balance is not very good. So it is a good idea to have a firm chair, maybe a wall, or husband also, nice broad shoulders. We will use their help. So take support, spread your legs really wide, and come down halfway. Half squats are generally good enough for most pregnancies. And when you come back up, you make sure that you keep your knees soft. So come down really slowly, halfway, legs wide apart, toes pointing out. And when you go back up, make sure your knees are soft. Don't lock your knees when you go up. Again, you can't start with 100 squats. You should start with 8 squats every day. And once your energy builds up, once your stamina builds up, then you can easily do as many as you feel comfortable. Now I'm going to teach you some deep breathing, and I would like you to do this with me. Close your eyes, place one hand on your chest, place one hand on your abdomen. Take a deep breath in, feel your chest expand, feel your abdomen expand, and don't hold your breath anywhere, and exhale. Let's do it again. Deep breath in, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. One more time. Inhale and exhale. Now, deep breathing should be done preferably first thing in the morning. उस time पे pollution बहुत कम होता है. Also, non-air conditioned environment. We don't want to take other people's germs. And maybe about 40-50 deep breaths. It will help to build your lung capacity. जो pregnancy में थोड़ी breathlessness होती है, वो कम हो जाएगी. It will also help to tone your abdomen muscles. So abdomen muscles होते हैं जो baby को delivery के time पे push करेंगे. Abdomen muscles वो होते हैं जो pregnancy के time पे they are supporting your baby. So you need good strength over there. No, they have to do extra work. So deep breathing is one of the safest exercises that you can do to tone your abdomen muscles and to build your lung capacity. So don't forget to do this and make sure you do it every day. Then comes Kegels. Kegels are pelvic floor exercises, and it's very difficult to demonstrate them, but I can explain them. So we're going to only imagine. Please don't do this in the bathroom. We're going to imagine that you need to pass urine, and I'm not letting you go to the bathroom. So how will you control your bladder? You will tighten up your vaginal muscles. Don't hold your breath. Don't tighten your abdomen. Okay? So just hold your vaginal muscles to try to control your urine, and then release. Got it? That's a Kegel. It's as simple as that. Okay? Let's try it one more time. Hold and release. Hold and release. Hold, release, hold, release. Right? How many do I want you to do every day? Lots. At least 100 to 150 Kegels every day are very, very necessary because they are toning your vaginal muscles. They are toning your pelvic floor muscles. During pregnancy, it will help to prevent urinary incontinence. You know, when I laugh, I cough, I sneeze, a little urine leaks, that will get prevented. Then the delivery becomes a lot better because that's exactly the part where the baby has to be pushed out from. And post-delivery, your vagina will go back to shape fast. So that's a definite benefit, right? So make sure you do your 100, 150, even 200 Kegels on a daily basis. And after delivery also, you should start doing your Kegel exercises. The next thing I would like to teach you is a little bit of labor breathing. Because when you go into labor, your breathing exercises are a little different. And if you learn today and do not practice, it will not be helpful at all. Which is why I like to teach it early in pregnancy so that mothers can practice. I taught you deep breathing. During labor, you have to do short breaths because the stomach, the uterus is hurting. The abdomen is in pain and you don't want to fill it up with so much air. So we will do only chest breathing and we will do short breaths. Okay? So close your eyes and only follow my instruction, right? Relax. Take a deep breath in. Exhale. Switch to short breaths. Breathe in through the nose, blow out through the mouth, only till the chest. Keep going. Labor contractions can last for 60 to 90 seconds. So you need to practice this for 60 to 90 seconds. Today, I'm going to make you do only 30 seconds. Contraction is disappearing. Take a deep breath in and relax. Now, in between contractions, there's no pain. So relax yourself, let yourself go loose and limp. Keep yourself calm, keep your thoughts positive. Wonderful. Now you can feel another contraction coming on. Take a deep breath in. Exhale. Switch to short breaths. Breathe in through the nose. Blow out through the mouth. Only till the chest. Keep going. Don't stop. I know it feels a little tiring. It's new. It's different. It's something you're doing for the first time. But I want you to do this every day so that there is good practice, especially if you are in the third trimester. Keep going. And the contraction is disappearing. Take a deep breath in and relax. All right. So every day you will practice 5. So 5 contractions, 5 breaks. Contraction, break, contraction, break, 5 times like that. Trust me, this will really help you as far as labor is concerned. Now comes the post-delivery period. Now, many mothers will tell me this, oh my God, I've gained so much weight. And the biggest problem is a healthy diet. So if you eat a healthy diet, you are definitely going to ensure that your weight loss happens. Because pregnancy weight is for the support of the baby. If you gain the right amount of weight during pregnancy, you will be able to lose that weight very well also. Do not eat excess of any food, like too much ghee, too much sugar, and also don't avoid foods. You know, you should have your pulses, you should have all your vegetables, all your fruits, everything. Your body needs to recover. So do not crash diet, right? Anything that becomes like a fad diet, I want to reduce my carbs, I want to avoid this, don't do that. Weight loss is gradual. It takes 9 months to gain the weight and grow the baby. You should at least give yourself 6 months for slow and gradual weight loss. For postnatal exercise in a vaginal birth, you should start at about 6 weeks. And in a cesarean birth, you will start at 3 months. But you must listen to your body. Sometimes even at 2 months, you feel comfortable. So maybe the doctor will give you the green signal and you can start. The safest, easiest, again, is start with a walking program. I know it's a little difficult nowadays to take the baby outside, but otherwise, under normal circumstances, we would say put the baby in a pram and go for a walk. So you can have the baby with you, you can have some bonding time, and you can do your exercise also. It is very important to check for diastasis recti. So what happens, as you can see on the picture on the left, for a woman, for anybody actually, abdominal muscles are actually 2 parallel lines like this. So when the abdominal muscles stretch and they spread during pregnancy because of the growing uterus, we have a condition which is called diastasis recti. And after pregnancy, it can actually look like a little paunch, which doesn't want to go. It refuses to go. So a lot of times women are, worrying that, oh my God, I have this paunch and it's just not going. This is the best way to check for diastasis recti. You can also ask your doctor to check when you go for your 6 weeks checkup. But otherwise, you can also do it. Lie down flat on your back and slowly raise your head as if you were doing a sit-up for about 6 inches. and press in your fingers just at your belly button. If you feel that the gap is about 1 finger, you do not have diastasis. But if you feel that the gap is 2 and 3 and 4 fingers, then you have a condition called diastasis recti. And before you start a lot of core strengthening abdominal exercises, you first need to correct your diastasis. These are some simple exercises that you can start. Once your vaginal stitches or your C-section stitches have healed, you can start doing leg slides. So that is something which can be started even at 3 and 4 weeks post-delivery. You can do toe touches like this. So you're lying down flat and one by one you are raising your foot to 90 degrees, your leg to 90 degrees while tapping with the toe of the other foot. The same bridge exercise, the pelvic tilt that I showed you for during pregnancy, is excellent for the diastasis recti also. Now I'm going to show you a very short video.
When is a parent born? When your world changes in a moment? Nani? Or when the moment is celebrated by all? When you start learning again? Or with a new role? Is it your child's first breath? Or is it just a feeling? Parents are born when they fulfill a responsibility.
Your child's umbilical cord blood can provide protection from 80 life-threatening diseases. Keep it safe with Asia's largest stem cell bank, Cord Life. One chance, one choice.
That was a little something from Cord Life, who has facilitated this platform for us. And as I told you, there's a little gift for everyone who's been a part of this session today. From Mama Earth and Cord Life, you get a gift coupon worth ₹400. Mama Earth is an organic product for maternity and baby care. So you can actually do a little shopping for some cocoa butter, some massage creams, maybe anything that you want for your baby, for yourself. You can look at purchasing this. The Cord Life team will be in touch with you to give you this voucher as well. So just 48 to 72 hours, lots of goodies coming your way, right? The recording of the session, the gift coupon, and also at this point of time, if you would like to learn more about stem cell banking, you can take a presentation from them. So you can get a one-on-one discussion on how stem cell banking can be helpful for you and your family. These are some books which I have on the market. I'm a little bit of a writer. So I have a book on fitness, which is exercise during and post pregnancy with pictures and lots of instructions. It's available on Amazon. We also have parenting mantras, which is all the little solutions to everyday parenting questions like breastfeeding or teething or toilet training. So you can consider this one also on Amazon. And when your baby starts eating food, that's where you can use the Supermom's recipe book, again available on Amazon. Now we are open to questions, but I would like you to make a note of all the details on this slide. So you have my website address, my Facebook and Instagram IDs. I would love for you to follow me so that I can kind of, keep sharing information with you. I also have a YouTube channel, which is called The Pregnancy Coach by Baby 360 Degrees. And you know what? I put a video there every week, a new video every week. So if you subscribe to it and also put that bell icon on, you will get notifications on my new videos. And I would also suggest that you take down one of the numbers on the screen as far as Cord Life is concerned, because to get your gift voucher and the recording of this session, whatever you prefer, whether you want to call, whether you want to WhatsApp, if you want a toll-free number, or if you would like to send a message, so you can SMS as well. So use the details on the screen, make notes of this so that you don't lose touch with us. And Dr. Madhvi is here with us, and we are all set to answer questions. I'm hoping that you put in a lot of questions in the chat, in the question box. So I'm going to now open the floor to that. All right, ma'am, I think the first question is talking about sleeping posture. Would you like to suggest what kind of sleeping posture mothers should be adopting during pregnancy?
Yeah, early first trimester and second trimester, it's generally whatever position the patient is comfortable with. Preferably avoid prone position, that is lying down on the stomach, but rest of the positions are fine. Then from the 6th month onwards, it's always better to lie down on the sides. The left side is the best, and next is the right, and last is the straight. Some patients are not comfortable lying down laterally, so in which case, if they prefer to lie down straight, then they preferably put a pillow behind their back so that there is no compression on the vena cava. So this will improve the perfusion to the baby, and that will help the growth of the baby.
Wonderful. So as ma'am has suggested, try and sleep on the left side, which I also understand is good for the blood circulation, good for digestion. And if you want to take a little break, you can be on your right side. However, if you do find yourself on your back, don't panic. Then you can immediately turn and sleep on your left side. So you don't need to kind of, press alarm buttons and discuss it the next morning with the doctor. Oh my God, I slept on my left side. It's not that scary. The baby is very active, very alert. They will kick you and wake you up also. So a little bit in your sleep, if you do change position, it is all right. Ma'am, there's another question here. Up till which month can we do all of these exercises? Is there any time when they should pause?
See, generally, the myth is pregnancy is a condition wherein one is supposed to take complete rest, which is absolutely wrong. And we always advocate the patients to be active, physically active, because all the complications which happen in pregnancy are generally, like, you can minimize the risk by being physically active. There are, of course, very few conditions wherein we advise rest to the patients, and those patients only are supposed to take rest, and rest of the patients can do all the exercises till delivery and afterwards also.
All right. So, ma'am, just as a knowledge for the patients, which conditions would you advise that they should not do any exercise?
Yeah, first 3 months of pregnancy, generally the risk of abortion is a little high. So you're supposed to avoid strenuous exercise during the first 3 months, like avoiding lifting weights, then avoiding long journeys. From the second trimester onwards, generally all the advisable exercises can be done. Certain conditions, say the patient is having spotting, or say she had a past history of repeated abortions, or if her placenta is low lying, like for some patients the placenta will be below the baby. So such conditions are, if they are there, then they are not supposed to do strenuous exercises.
Right. Also, I believe there are, when the baby's growth is really slow, or if, the mother has had bleeding, spotting. So you should always ask your doctor. I think the most important thing, and honestly, I would also suggest to all the mothers that you should ask your doctor at every visit. It doesn't matter if the question sounds repetitive, so when you go for your 4th month, 5th month, 6th month, every time ask, because there might be a change in your pregnancy condition. So if you were allowed in the 5th month, something has come up in the 6th month, the doctor might ask you to stop. So always ask at every visit, don't be shy. Don't think that you are, troubling the doctor. This is good for your health, and your doctors are there to help you make sure that you and baby are super healthy. Okay?
True. Like say some patients, they develop complications, say in the 4th month, 5th month of pregnancy. Like for some patients, the womb is little loose by birth. So such are the patients who are at risk of having abortions in the 5th month, 6th month. So generally we advise rest for such patients. And some patients, they develop, say, high blood pressure during the 7th month, 8th month. Even for such patients also, we advise rest.
Right.
To prevent certain complications.
Okay, so one of the mamas is saying that she's feeling stomach stiffness and she's in the 35th week. So my understanding is that she's experiencing Braxton Hicks contraction. So ma'am, can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, see, these Braxton Hicks contractions are normal uterine contractions, and they tend to increase towards the term. That is, after 35th week of pregnancy, the pregnant woman is likely to feel this tightening of abdomen. So as long as the tightening is there only for short periods and it relaxes thereafter for some time, that is normal. But suppose if the tightening is continuous or if it becomes painful, then they're supposed to visit the doctor.
Right. So Braxton Hicks contractions are normal. They are actually a uterine exercise. The uterus also does this as an exercise. It prepares to actually, yeah. So as long as it is short, as long as it is painless, and as long as it is sporadic, then we consider it to be normal. Some women may notice it, and some women who are feeling that, oh, I've never felt anything like this, it's actually very normal, because if you're busy and you're occupied, you might even ignore them. So don't worry. Yeah, don't worry about it. So I have another question from a mother who wants to know about intercourse during pregnancy. Is it safe or should it be completely avoided?
No, if it's a normal pregnancy, then intercourse is safe. There are certain conditions wherein, again, we advise the pregnant woman to abstain from intercourse. And they are, again, like if the woman has had previous recurrent abortions, or if the woman is having say spotting or bleeding during this pregnancy, or suppose if the woman's womb is loose, like when it's called cervical incompetence. Such are the patients wherein we advise them to abstain from intercourse. And one more indication is like a placenta previa. Here the placenta is low lying, and so they have a risk of having bleeding. So such patients also are supposed to avoid intercourse.
Right. So I think, moms, we feel shy to ask these questions with the doctor in the clinic face to face. Please don't be shy. It's a normal part and parcel of your life, and you should know about it. And if your husband is going with you to the doctor's visit, you can ask with him, so that even he is clear about these things and there is nothing uncomfortable about the conversation. One thing I would like to add here is that yes, intercourse is allowed. We should not be scared. I know when I was pregnant, I used to be so scared that, my baby's head is going to get hurt. It's a very natural feeling for all mothers. But the baby is very well protected. I would suggest no pressure on the abdomen, and please avoid, very vigorous movements and jarring activities. Those should be avoided. So be gentle and enjoy the process. If you're uncomfortable with penetrative intercourse, you can also consider just, some foreplay. That can also be fun, right? So those are some bits and tidbits of advice that I can share. Yes, Ashutosh. Yes.
Ma'am, there are a couple of questions which I have shared on your WhatsApp.
On my WhatsApp. Okay, let me just very quickly grab that phone.
Sure.
Sorry, today was one day I kept this phone far away from myself. Okay, so there is a question, ma'am, which says that vomiting sensation, till which month are we going to have during pregnancy?
Okay, in a normal pregnancy, generally vomiting sensation and vomitings are there till the first trimester, that is 12 weeks of pregnancy. But there are some women who have this problem till 9th month. But generally the incidence will reduce. And there are certain conditions in pregnancy wherein the incidence of vomitings will be very high, like in women with the twins, and in some women with abnormal pregnancies like vesicular mole, the incidence of vomitings will be very high and they may need multiple admissions too. But in general, they tend to subside after 12 weeks of pregnancy.
Right. And some of the natural things which can actually help to take care of nausea is don't be empty stomach. Because, if you don't eat for long hours, or if you eat oily and spicy food too much, you might get acidity, which can cause nausea. Having a little bit of ginger, sucking on dry ginger can help. Don't get up suddenly in the morning when you get up if you're getting morning sickness. Just maybe have some dry toast or have a small biscuit, lie back in bed, rest for 15-20 minutes and then get up. Additionally, I've also seen what helps mothers is that if you avoid certain smells and certain tastes, because you know your body, right? So if you know that when the dal is cooking, I start feeling nauseous, then you please stay away from the cooking dal. So avoid those smells and tastes which are causing or triggering your nausea. You just have to control it. It's a normal process. One more thing I would like to share, ma'am, over here is that, a lot of women don't have nausea during pregnancy. And I was one of those lucky women who never had nausea. And people kept telling me that you don't have nausea, something is not normal with your pregnancy. So
No,
people will tell you so many things, and you really have to take it with a grain of salt. And I would say that please ask your doctors, don't ask friends, family, relatives, don't look at Google, it's very scary.
no,
All
not
right.
having nausea, not having nausea also is normal. And for those who have vomiting, see, the rule is you replenish whatever you vomit, again you eat. You drink lots of liquids, especially electrolytes, lemon water, and you can
Right.
also take honey, so that like your glucose doesn't go down. So keep
Right.
replenishing whatever you lose. And there are certain medications which are safe in pregnancy and which will help in preventing vomiting. So you could take that too.
Right. Okay. So there is a question from a mother who wants to know till what trimester she can travel, but she has not specified road travel, train travel, or air travel. So she's just asking till what trimester can she travel.
Yeah, generally in the absence of any of the complications, they can travel probably till the 9th month. But in once you enter the 9th month, it is not so safe to travel, especially long distances. But because anytime they may set into labor, or their waters may break, or they may have bleeding. So in which case they may land in emergency. So till I think 35th or 36th week, it is safe.
Yeah, and you should also check with the airlines if you're planning to do air travel. Whether the airlines is allowing you to board, because they might not issue boarding card after 32 weeks. So it is
Yeah.
airline policy. Yeah,
Yeah,
so you
international
should check.
tracking, generally they don't allow after 32 weeks.
Right. So you check the airline policy also, because from the doctor's perspective, and they also want a doctor's letter saying that you're fit to fly. So even if you're 30 weeks or 31 weeks, they will want the doctor's note saying that you're fit to fly. So keep all of these things ready and handy. All right. Next question is, are there any vaccines for COVID-19 which are being developed for the baby?
No. Whatever the approvals they have given till now, it's only after 16 years of age. And old age, yeah, it can be given. Or pregnancy, again, it's controversial. They're still doing the study. So maybe after some time, it will be approved for pregnant women. But less than 16 years, no.
Okay. All right. The next question is, does gestational diabetes continue after pregnancy also?
See, gestational diabetes is a condition wherein the sugars are high only, I mean, it start increasing during pregnancy. Mostly it will start in the 2nd trimester, that is from the 6th month onwards. So generally this subsides after delivery. Sometimes within few days after delivery, sometimes it may take up to 6 weeks. But the only concern here is the women who develop gestational diabetes are at risk of developing essential diabetes. That is, at a later age, they may develop diabetes mellitus. So this is an indication for a woman to be cautious. That is, she has to modify her lifestyle, then modify her diet, so that it's in her hands to either prevent or postpone developing diabetes later in life.
Awesome. So exercise, diet, all my favorite statements have come into that answer. So make sure that you have a good lifestyle, right? Okay. Is gestational diabetes going to transfer to the baby? Will the baby get diabetes if the mother has?
Generally, no. If the mother is like well under control, her sugar levels are under control during pregnancy, and she doesn't have any complications related to diabetes, generally the babies will not develop diabetes. But if the gestational diabetes is not under control, then at a later age, the baby may develop diabetes.
Okay. Next question, ma'am, is if a mother, one of your patients is COVID positive, will you deliver her?
Yeah, of course, we do deliver. We do admit patients with COVID-19, but we have a separate ward, separate isolated ward, and wherein we take all the precautions. And
Right.
like we have a team, COVID team, who take care of the COVID complications to the mother as well as the baby.
Right, because I think that has become a big worry with mothers, that if I get COVID positive, I'll be sent off to a COVID facility and I will miss my doctor. So that's a big one. Thank you so much for that.
Yes.
What happens if the baby gets affected by COVID-19? How do I face that situation?
See, generally, you should not be worrying in this situation, because whatever cases we have seen, we have come across, the babies are generally not affected, provided you are careful. Like you are careful with the baby and you are careful with your health. So generally the babies are not affected. And in the rare instance where the baby turns positive, then also general routine care is enough for the baby. Very few babies may land into complication like respiratory distress, and such condition baby may need admission to the NICU.
Right. So, one of the things that I have heard about babies and COVID is that babies generally, they are asymptomatic, they don't get
But they are
complications,
super spreaders.
but they are spreaders, they are carriers. So,
True,
because
true, yeah.
everybody carries them around and etc. So if, the mother is COVID positive and you are rooming in and taking care of the baby, then it is a good idea to not let the baby wander around, because then other family members will also get infected. So be very careful of that, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. Whoever is taking care of the baby, that lady is likely to get the infection. So she should be very careful. She should wear the mask, then she should wash the hands, and she should maintain the social distancing from others outside the room, so that others don't develop infection.
So yeah, I mean, babies, those innocent little babies, they are the biggest spreaders of COVID, because obviously, we hold them, we cuddle them, we keep them close to our bodies, and we also do so much of, kuchiku with them. So that's a big spreader. Okay.
And because of it, so many pediatricians have developed COVID because of the babies.
All right. Okay, there is a question from a mom who's saying that I am not able to visit my doctor. Is it necessary to get my screening, ultrasound, etc. done in the 6th month?
If you have not done your screening test in the 5th month, then definitely yes, it is better late than never.
Okay, so she should make it a point to go, even if she is not able to visit the doctor. She should try her best to do that.
Yeah, get the baseline investigations done, because actually because of this, more than the COVID, we are seeing complications because of this neglected checkups, antenatal checkups.
All right. And she's saying that she has done it in the 5th month, so she can skip the 6th month, right? Then.
Actually, 5th month, if we do the screening and a scan, TIFA, then 6th month, we don't do a TIFA again. There's no need for an ultrasound unless we anticipate some problem.
Understood.
The next scanning in the 8th month.
Right. Okay, perfect. All right. So we also have a question from a mother who says that if I am COVID positive, is it true that I will not be given any medications during pregnancy to treat my COVID?
No. Irrespective of pregnancy, generally we treat COVID. See, most of the times, 80% of the times, you are not symptomatic and you won't need any treatment. And in the rest of the 20% of the cases, you may have mild symptoms, wherein generally a paracetamol will help, and you may need some antibiotics, basic antibiotics, to prevent respiratory tract infections. But suppose if you are severely ill, then irrespective of the pregnancy, we treat COVID infection. And as of now, like, there are no studies as to the effects of these antiviral drugs on the babies, because whatever antiviral drugs we are using are new, but still mother's life is more important. So if the mother is severely ill, then irrespective of pregnancy, we treat COVID infection.
Absolutely. So it's really essential that, we take care of the mother. We're not becoming Mother India during pregnancy or even post delivery. And that's a tip, moms, that even after delivery, please do take care of yourself. You should eat.
The mother is well, then only she can give birth to a healthy baby. That is for sure.
So the same thing happens, post delivery. When we're taking care of the baby, we forget our diet, we forget to drink enough water, we forget our own mental well-being. So it's very important that you should, think about yourself, plan some me time for yourself, be happy. That's very, very important. I think that is one of the biggest things that will lead to physical fitness, being happy. and that is also going to result in a happy baby. I think that's the best advice that anybody could give you at any point of time.
True.
Any last words, ma'am? Would you like to add any quick tips of advice from your end before we close the session today?
See, in general, don't neglect your health and don't worry too much about COVID, because COVID, like keeping aside all other aspects, it has not been very bad on pregnant women. So we are very happy that our pregnant women are not suffering and they don't get too much affected with COVID-19 infection. So go for your routine regular checkups and have a normal healthy life.
Wonderful, ma'am. There's one last question I'm going to trouble you with. It just came in. How do I
Yeah.
prevent stretch marks during pregnancy, and how do I reduce stretch marks after delivery?
See, during pregnancy, it's generally not possible to prevent stretch marks because it depends upon the stretch of your abdomen and the texture of your skin. If your skin is elastic, then generally you don't develop too many stretch marks. But suppose if your skin lacks elasticity, then you may develop stretch marks. And post-delivery, and there are of course certain creams which we advise, but they don't totally avoid the stretch marks. Maybe to some extent they may limit. And after delivery, generally the stretch marks become lighter and they become thinner over a period of time. And with regular exercise and toning of the muscles, it will help. And suppose if the stretch marks are really worrying, then you can go for laser, which will reduce the stretch marks.
I think you should wear it as a proud pregnancy badge. I'm still wearing some of mine. But during pregnancy, I think, making sure that you stay well hydrated, eating all your good fiber foods like your fruits, vegetables, so you get a lot of your collagen in, will help your skin to stay soft and supple. And as ma'am suggested, you can definitely use some creams and lotions. Anything with vitamin E is helpful. And it's recommended that you start using it after the 12th week. So apply abdomen, breasts, and buttocks twice a day. These are the only 3 areas which we want to increase in pregnancy. Other areas should remain the same. Okay. So thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, audience. I am sure that you got a lot of questions answered today. And it is amazing. We didn't lose any of our audience. Everyone has stayed glued for the entire session. So I guess it was really interesting. We're feeling proud of ourselves. If there's any feedback that you would like to share, please do put it in the chat now. And the CODLIFE team will be in touch with you. Thank you, Madhvi ma'am. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you, audience, for sharing your Sunday afternoon with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonali. Thank you, audience, and thank you, CODLIFE.
Thank you.